Okay, done. Okay, we are looking at Unit 7, MDI 001. The unit is about economic impacts of migration. In fact, we various blocks and various units. One would have understood the fact that migration actually is beneficial both for the host nation as well as the home nation. So, let's look at further on this economic impacts. And as I keep doing every time, there is a little tie back. Summing up unit 4 and 5, migration is always a complex issue because it is interdisciplinary. There are people involved, obviously there are various things one has to look at. In 2030 agenda for sustainable development recognizes for the first time contribution of migration to sustainable development. Migration has been historically happening and will continue to do so. In spite of the politics of nation states, migration shall continue. Migration is a dynamic phenomenon, response to complex range of factors, including geopolitical situation to technology changes. And technology has changed the way migration is done today. Technology has brought in a lot many things. We will look at that too. Increase in global population, demand for scarce resources, then there is aging population, and which will lead to migration. And the flow of migration constantly changes. Also, we have seen increasing cases of anti-migration and anti-migrant attitudes across, the latest being United States. They, in fact, are deporting migrants who do not have the relevant papers, who are termed as illegal migrants or aliens. It is also very important to manage migration better for sustainable development. Irrespective of the politics, everybody understands that it is better for economy, both for the host nation and home nation. Yet the politics comes into the picture. Summing up unit 6, as the human population increases, so are the renewed aspirations pushing people to migrate. Now, these renewed aspirations could be real or it could be perceived. Remember, human being works with perception. So a perception of betterment. For example, when people migrate from rural areas into urban areas, they perceive a betterment in their lives, which may or may not be true. In such context, the politics of migration governance plays a crucial role in managing migration. So you need to have something called a migration governance. Nation states still are not doing a lot of talk on migration governments. It's more of ad hocism associated with origin countries, transit countries, and destination countries. And all countries are not origin or destination countries. Some are transit countries, जिसके बीच में से लोग migrate करते हैं. Then IOM, International Organization for Migration, considers several dimensions: policy on travel and temporary mobility, immigration, emigration, labor markets, economic, social development. So बहुत सारी चीजें one has to consider in terms of migration governance, because one, the premise is that people will continue to migrate. They will migrate for aspirations, for betterment of their life or betterment of their employment. So once everybody knows that people are migrating, it is so much important for the nation states to set up some sort of a migration governance. Challenges to migration governments includes erosion of national sovereignty, negative public perception, lack of international cooperation, and institutional apathy. In terms of identity politics, generally politicians come across and says how these migrants are spoiling a nation or corrupting its culture or bringing in crime. In fact, the US elections, one of the major talking points of the Republican Party is how these immigrants are criminals and they increase crime, which is more in terms of identity politics. So we have had, US is the latest country to join the bandwagon of anti-immigration. They have been deporting people. They have been chaining people and deporting them on military aircraft. So we are seeing this is a part of the identity politics and this hate for immigrants. So let's look at this unit and look at the objective, evaluate role of migration in development of economy, diaspora entrepreneurship and investment, impact of remittances, and the various aspects of diaspora philanthropy. Again, as we talked about earlier, migration is beneficial both for the host and home nation in various ways. So we need to understand globalization is a thing. It's a real thing. One has to go by the premise that globalization has integrated countries, societies, economics, cultures across the globe, reduce transportation and communication costs, and enable, in fact, this reduction in transportation and communication cost has enabled migration. Previously, when people needed to migrate, there was this problem about transportation. It would take months to migrate. Today, it with air travel, things have cut down into hours. Now communication is 24 by 7. Internet has helped people know where they are migrating, how they are going it. Globalized world economy integrates and interconnects through multiple channels. And then, of course, there are state and non-state actors which participate in world economy, making a more complex yet efficient and productive. So, social media companies like X, Meta are all non-state actors. But today, these companies, or a company like Apple or Amazon, which are non-state actors, almost have, a GDP outlay or an outlay which is equivalent to many countries' GDP, and they obviously influence not only the politics but the way a country moves. Saizga and D. Haas suggestion that globalization can be seen as a technological process. Technology change has facilitated migration in threefold manner. So they say that technology has facilitated migration in threefold manner. Number one, lowered resource constraints on mobility. So threshold level of wealth required to move, bringing down cost of travel and communication. Uh, just a minute. So technology has reduced resource constraints. So today you do not need that kind of money to travel as it was required earlier. Cost of travel and cost of communication. And not only that, remember when the slaves or the indentured labor was taken away. For example, when the indentured labor were taken away on ships, they understood the fact that there was no way to come back because of the cost involved, and there was no way they could communicate back. Today, when migration happens, people are constantly in touch with their families back at home, even when they travel throughout at any corner of the world. Second, it has strengthened migrant workers and transnational ties by making easier to stay in touch. You can do a voice call, you can do a video call, you can do a chat, you can connect on social media with family, friends. You can remit money, you can travel back and forth between destination origin countries. You don't have to spend months and years of planning, collecting money to travel. You can do it instantaneously. And third, it has increased literacy and education along with improved access to global information. So today, if a person has to travel from here to, let's say, US, one already knows what are the routes, who are the agents, what are the carriers, where in the US you need to go. You can do a 360-degree YouTube view. You can go into Google Maps and check out the layout. You can check out the culture, the restaurants, the accommodation. And these processes seem to have increased people's capabilities and aspirations to migrate. So it is not just with all, and that is why they have said that globalization is a technological change, because all these technologies are enabling people to migrate. It's the same thing. These technologies are enabling people to even do travel, not only locally but internationally. Previously, if you had to go to an unknown place, you wouldn't know what to expect. You couldn't book your hotels, or you couldn't book an accommodation. You did not know what were the local sites to visit. Today, everything can be done and planned before you start, in fact, planning. Seska and Dehas argue that migration can be seen as a key dimension of highly unequal global terms of exchange. In fact, this is the reason they say that because of these highly unequal global terms of exchange, uh, migration is seen as a key dimension. People are migrate. Why are people migrating from rural to urban areas? Because facilities in urban area are more, employment in urban area are more. So it's an unequal exchange which is happening between rural and urban areas. And if the same facilities were given and the same employment opportunities were given in the rural areas, why would people want to migrate? Reflected in migration policies that give employment and residence rights to certain favored groups, but at the same time exclude lower skilled migrants from such rights. For example, look at internal displacement. We expect the labor to who come from the rural areas. Look at the cleaners, the sweepers, the various domestics which come. We expect them to find accommodation on their own, and inevitably they live in ghettos, they live in unauthorized colonies, they live in shanties. We are favoring certain migrations to happen, like we have favored skilled migration, unskilled, in fact there are condominiums in, for example, I stay in Gurgaon, condominiums which do not allow the workers or the service providers to travel in the same lift as the lifts in which the people who stay go in that lifts. So it's a question of allowing or controlling. So I was picking up these articles from the Tribune. uh, had to eat with handcuffs on, and we have also gone through this multiple units which talk about human dignity, which talk about migration being humane. In fact, this is something that I was tweeting. Irrespective of the fact that these migrants might be illegal in the sense they are not complying with the domestic laws, they still tend to be human. And what is the message that you are trying to convey by chaining these people? For example, these Indians, 108 all Indians who came, were chained in the aircraft and not even allowed to use the toilets, or even were given food while they were chained. Why? They are in a plane. And then I saw this, they spent rupees 50 lakhs to migrate. So you can imagine what kind of a motivation would this youth have to spend 50 lakhs to migrate. And sometimes you wonder whether this is actually a rational decision or a emotional decision to migrate. Because think of the fact that if I have 50 lakhs, and if I invest it in business or put it in an FD and get the interest, so obviously there is many more considerations which these families are taking before putting or pushing this boy to migrate, and that too through an illegal route. They have migrated using a smuggled route where they are giving money through the agents and migrating to a foreign country. Exclusion mechanisms also do not stop migration, but likely to make the migrant worker more vulnerable to exploitation on the global labor market. So, more often than not, it's about politics, because multiple researches have shown very clearly that migration is good for the home country. Of course, it is good for the host country. It is very good for the host country, because migrants get in, do work which the host country people are not willing to do. They get skills which the host country people do not have. They pay taxes. It is excellent for the home country because they remit money, and yet there are these exclusion mechanisms. So obviously, it is the migration politics which come into play. It is also argued that emergence of capitalism and subsequent global mobility of capital through globalization has allowed transnational capitalist class to forge new capital labor relations based on flexible. So what capitalism is doing is, they see labor among all things like capital or various materials. Labor is the most inflexible, and because labor is tied to humans, it's very difficult to quantify it. Now, what capitalism is trying to do is quantifying labor, so that you have units of work, payment linked to units of work, what they call volumetization of labor. Whereas labor is considered by these people as units. The work that the gig economy, what we call the gig economy, like the Uber and the Zomato and the Swiggy, is whether you can take one person, replace it with another person, irrespective of skills. This is what is called volumetization of labor, flexibilization or volumetization of labor. Under this new modality of flexible labor, workers no longer enjoy the protection of the state, of the capital labor relation. So what they are saying is, the capitalization wants that there should not be any labor law, basically remove the humanness out of the human labor, face conditions of deunionization, informalized, casualized, part-time contracting. We are seeing that, a march on to, let's say in India, where there are multiple contractuals which are happening. The whole Agniveer scheme is more in terms of contractuals. That's how the capitalism is moving. Workers have increasingly become a commodified input into production, just like any other raw materials. So all these years, the capitalists were trying to commodify labor, which was not being done, but now it seems to be moving in all directions. Affects and is affected by development taking place at local, regional, national, and global level. So, what the US is doing now will affect labor and migrants at all places in the world. So, if you looked at the fact, Colombia actually got the US to turn back its plane, did not allow the US planes to land, and told that if you have to deport those people, please send them in commercial aircrafts without them to be chained. The reciprocal relationship between human mobility and development is being increasingly recognized by companies. So there is this constant fight and negotiation happening between policies or migration politics, and at the same time the human need for mobility and migration, and the fact that this is leading to development. So this constant negotiation and fight will continue. Okay, so UN Handbook of Migration for Development generates 4 types of capital. So there are not just the capital in terms of money, there are 4 types of capital: social, financial, human, and cultural. So what is social capital? Migrants develop and maintain social ties across both locations, yield to other resources known as social capital, allows the creation of networks that facilitate flow of information, skills, financial resources, values, and ideas. And that is the reason why civilization progressed. Because if you remember, if you have studied your history, right through the history, it was the movement of people, travelers, traders, which led to exchange of goods, ideas. Civilizations learned out of each other and grew. So, for example, when China did a lot of development in terms of paper, gunpowder, Now that when they moved to the west, further development happens. Arabs did certain developments. Indian civilization did certain developments, and then they diffused across the world. Social capital becomes a very important capital. Then there is financial capital. We all understand financial capital comprises of remittances, private funds, in-kind transfer. Recorded remittance become a source of foreign exchange, contribute to macroeconomic stability. For example, India today is the largest receiver of remittances. It has the largest migrant population and the largest receiver of remittances. Human capital, skills and knowledge of migrants are considered as human capitals. A lot of migrants who went to the US in the 60s, some of them came back to India, for example. Apollo Hospital was set up by a migrant, came back from the US. A lot of companies in the Silicon Valley of India, which is Bangalore, was set up by Indians returning back. Evidence from Latin America, Africa, South Asia suggests that remittance reduce the depth and severity of poverty, as well as indirectly stimulate economic activity. These are various researches which has happened over a period of time. Dramatic increase in remittances responsible for third to one of our overall reduction in headcount poverty rate in Nepal. Nepal's GDP is almost, remittances is almost in double digits of the GDP. Countries like Nepal, Philippines, depend a lot on remittances. In fact, this article from Newsweek, dated 2023, May 21, where it talks about immigrants adding 2 trillion to the US GDP in 2016 and 458.7 billion to state, local, and federal taxes. And even after this, the identity politics being practiced in the US is anti-immigrant. They spent billions of dollars in taxes. Immigrants were left with 1.2 trillion in spending power. So look at how the immigrants, boost up the economy. Okay, then beyond this, there is the cultural capital. Well-being of migrants can be improved through mobility and acquisition of new ideas of values, democracy, equity, which can be termed as cultural capital, may be used for peace building, conflict resolution in home countries. And this cultural capital is a very important capital because, for a simple reason, the Indo-US nuclear deal was brought in by all these diaspora, Indian diaspora, which lobbied the US government to enter into this nuclear deal. In fact, this cultural capital was the reason a lot of US companies set up shop in India. Social remittances, then there is a concept of social remittances. Social remittances circulate in several ways. When migrants return to live in or visit their communities of origin, non-migrants visit their friends and families in receiving countries through letters, videos, email, blog. Every time you are coming in contact with a migrant, there is an exchange of a new idea. Shake up gender and generational dynamics in the way that benefit women. In fact, migrant men who emigrate to Western countries along with working women tend to research has shown that they tend to do more work in the house than men back home in India. Migrant men and women through Latin America and Asia who work and share responsibility for house cleaning and childcare talk about and model gender relationship differently when they visit or return to their home community. Now, these exchanges make a difference. For example, there is clear anecdotal evidence that the 1990-91 Indian liberalization done by Manmohan Singh, the erstwhile prime minister, was a direct result of pressures from the diaspora community, because all these diasporas said that India needs to liberalize. So the social remittances become a very important part of the give and take. City GPS 2018 report titled Migration and Economy has proved to be a positive force for economic growth of countries. Three ways in migration drives economic growth. In fact, you would have gone through this in multiple units. We are re-emphasizing A for revision, plus at the same time it becomes in order, creates a strong positive effect on GDP per capita. 75% of the migrants under, because mostly migration is done by people of lower age, in the sense working class people, people who are able to contribute. Older people migrate less. Lower skill migration drives greater labor force participation among natives also, because they are migrating, they are pushing participation from among natives also. Improves output per worker by increasing human capital levels. Unskilled migration often made indirect contribution by increasing incentives to invest in human capital among natives. That, to training becomes a very important part of the for the development of human capital. Migration increases rate of innovation because inevitably migrants take risk. Total factor productivity growth have filed over 40% of the global mind, because these are the guys who are changing culture, who are changing their environment. Inevitably they are the ones what we in India call jugaad. So if you see the people who are coming from rural areas to work in the urban areas, you will see the kind of jugaad or innovation they do in urban jobs. You should see when these technicians come from urban lab, various technicians come, how they are able to circumvent some very difficult problems. Migrants mainly drive greater innovation through four mechanisms. So what are these four mechanisms? Concentrate in most innovative areas of economy compared to the whole population. Helps fill acute skill shortage and drive aggregate productivity at a faster rate. So inevitably, once it is known that a particular skill is required, people will migrate towards that. So for example, when the oil boom happened in the Gulf, there were all these educated, skilled people who migrated to take advantage of that oil boom. Those the Gulf countries did not have the requisite workforce. When Qatar was hosting the World Football Cup, all these migrants from India and Nepal gave their services in terms of masonry, carpentry, and so on and so forth. Migrants by nature are more likely to take risk. They've already decided to leave their communities and home to travel and find a new life. So they're more risk takers, more likely to start business and be entrepreneurs, as they do not have the required networks and careers built for them in the host country. So they would take risk, they would go out of, in fact during COVID, some of the most menial work was done by immigrants in the US and the Western countries, because the native population was all locked down. Migrants are different from host population and potentially see things differently from native groups, which allow them to challenge pre-existing business, further driving productivity. The innovative aspect. Most of us tend to look at things in the most natural way, the way we have been seeing. Now, when somebody from outside comes and sees things from their perspective, they can always suggest something better in doing so. Migration can help foster better international trade, investment, and technology linkage, which boosts productivity. For a simple reason, let's say an immigrant coming from India knows what is the potential in terms of business opportunities in India. And because he or she knows the environment, how to do business in India, if they are doing work in, let's say, a US company, they would be able to push a unit in India to be able to do business, which is what has happened, how companies like Apple, Amazon, and various other companies came to India. So OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which is an intergovernment organization, in their migratory policy debates knows the impact of migration in three key areas. So what are the three key areas in which impact happens? One is labor markets. Migrants account for 47% of the increase in workforce in the US and 70% in Europe. Now, one would wonder, in spite of all these data and all this research, why is migration politics against the immigrants? Now, that's a very difficult question to answer because one needs to understand the domestic politics to be able to understand why and how this is happening. Fill essential niches both in fast-growing and declining sectors of economy. Young migrants are better educated, contribute significant to labor market flexibility, notably in Europe. And in fact, Europe also, if you see, there is a high amount of anti-immigrant sentiment driven by local politicians, and inevitably, that's how the politics, comes across. The public purse, migrants contribute more in taxes, social contribution, because they are in a different culture and a different country from their home. They would like to follow rules in terms of taxes and social contribution. In fact, a migrant would be much more cautious in a host country than what they would be in their home country. Then they receive in benefits, hence most positive impact on public purse, economic growth, boost working age population, arrive with skills, contributing to human capital. Receiving countries contributed to technical because they are innovative, they are risk taking, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's look at diasporic entrepreneurship and investment. Diasporic community is more risk taking. We have been talking about migrant being more risk taker than the other non-diasporic community when it comes to starting businesses in the countries of origin. It is due to the knowledge of local political, economic, and cultural environment, as well as their personal connection and linguistic ability, which gives them competitive. So not only in the host country, but they also have much an advantage in their home country because they are able to link the home and the host. GPS 2018 report mentions that technological advancement of Israel and Taiwan can be credited to the immigrants. In fact, the whole cutting edge technology by Taiwan and Israel are by immigrants who returned from the US and the Silicon Valley in the early 80s, which is what happened to India in the 90s and the early 2000s. These return migrants brought capital, technical and operating experience, knowledge of business models, and network of contacts from the US with them. In fact, the whole Chinese AI industry has been developed by immigrants, Chinese immigrants who came back from the US to set up companies in China. In fact, today China is competing or in fact ahead of the US in terms of artificial intelligence. That's a diaspora direct investment. Consequently, both Israel and Taiwan are now appreciated worldwide for their leading firms in software, security, computer production, and integrated circuits. Return migration of skilled workers from to India brought the requisite expertise and capital to Bangalore. For example, there were never, venture capital funds in India in the 90s. The venture 90s and the 2000s was the time when these return immigrants from the Silicon Valley back to India, they set up all these companies, set up venture capital. Today, the whole concept of startup, which is there in India, is because of all these factors. DDI, diasporic direct investment, also called DDI. MPI report, diasporic entrepreneurs can contribute to development in the following ways: foster business development, job creation. So what is typically a startup? A lot of startups are being done by this diasporic direct investment. DDI creates economic, social, and political capital through networks, and they create those networks. So that's about diasporic direct investment, taps into social capital through cultural and linguistic understanding. Entrepreneurship and economic development are positively linked. Positives of diaspora. And in fact, it has also been said that diaspora direct investment is much better than foreign investment, because diasporas have a stake in the home country. They are more, there is an emotional connect, whereas foreign institutional investment will not have any emotional connections. They will only look at profits, and that is why DDI is a better way to go about. Some of the diaspora's obstacles include complex procedure, administrative hurdles, complicated tax laws, limited access to local financial and corruption. I think this is a point which has been put with respect to possibly India, but it could be a point which could be across a lot of global south. These challenges need to be overcome for harnessing diaspora. But I think this point has been put in the unit, whoever was writing this unit, looking at the Indian diaspora direct investment. So what is the significance of remittances? From 2012, remittance plays a crucial role in boosting economy, recipients countries foreign exchange. Again, as I said, India has the largest migrant population, largest diasporic population, and has the largest remittances which are received. They are not in the double digits like Nepal or many other countries, but it's the largest remittances which is received by any country. They are less volatile in nature in comparison to any other source of foreign exchange, support the development of financial sector through positive impact on bank deposits and credits to the private sector. So there are so many ways these remittances affect. There are multiple studies which have been done in multiple countries, how they affect, and inevitably these remittances are spent in getting nutrition, in getting children to get educated, in getting people to build pakka houses. At the household level, remittances cover daily expenses, cushion against emergency, help in making a small investment in business or education. Better targeted to the needs of poor in comparison to foreign aid or foreign. So one of the possible reasons why these families, what I showed you in terms of the Tribune article of these deported Indians who spent 50 lakhs to go to the US through a smuggled route, could be the fact that the foreign exchange between US and India, so for example, 1 rupee, $1 is about 80 rupees. If they were looking at possibly that if they went out there, got a job and started earning in US dollars, they would be able to make much more money in terms of remittances than what they have to spend. That could be the only reason why they would have spent this much money to go through an illegal route. Otherwise, unless you are persecuted, why would you? And even if when you are persecuted, when will you have this kind of money? So there are some ILO instruments for remittances, as we talked about in migration governance in Unit 6. There are multiple instruments. So there is an ILO instrument for remittances, something called a Migration for Employment Convention 1949. Also, everybody needs to understand these negotiations or these conflicts between a global order in terms of understanding that migration is going to continue to happen, and between migration politics, these negotiations and fight shall continue to remain. And somewhere down the line, possibly the people might push the politics, or the politicians might push to understand that migration will continue and migration is good. And possibly the institutional ability might happen to actually make migration much more orderly, humane, and possible. Each member for which convention is enforced permit take into account the limits allowed by national laws concerning export and import of currency, transfer of such part of earning and sale. So there is a instrument for these remittances, and countries who have signed these instruments need to enforce these things. There are multilateral frameworks on labor migration. As per the multidimensional dimensional poverty index report on diasporic philanthropy, philanthropic resources may be monetary or in kind. Human resources like professional experience, technical experience, contracts, direct services can come under the in-kind category. So a person need to come back. So, for example, there is a doctor. There is a doctor specializing in neurology. He need not have to come back, but if he is connected to a Indian doctor, they can exchange information on a webcam, through a video chat, and a Indian doctor can take benefit out of the skills of this non-resident Indian doctor, which is in kind category of contribution. As per report, nature of diaspora philanthropy has also changed drastically because of good communication. It has also changed. There is an increasing mobility of talent. Efforts are being made at the national and international level to attract and ease the migration process. So now that's where it becomes very confusing for anybody studying this subject and going through this unit. At one time we keep talking about international level to attract and ease the migration process, and at the same time we see this news of deportations, of identity politics. And as I keep saying in my all classes, and every person in the class needs to understand this, negotiation will continuously go on. It has been liberalized, the movement of less proficient workers, the movement of highly skilled expert entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, and entertainers. So at one level, it is, nations are trying to figure out, and the world community is trying to figure out how to make the whole migration process easier, orderly, and humane. At the same time, the domestic politics puts pressure on governments, and there is an anti-immigrant sentiment, and so on and so forth. Sir, international migration has increased wealthy, accomplished, and well-connected diaspora. So there is transnationalism, there is globalization. At the same time, there is nationalism, there is localization. These negotiations continue. The organization revolution, the world has witnessed the communication revolution, emergence of internet, email, which has helped diaspora connect, interact, and organize with their families living abroad. So at one point, there is this fight to divide, but at another universe, there is this fight to organize. So in fact, in spite of the Walmartization and the contractualness and various other things, today workers, migrants are able to connect with each other, share their suffering or share their problems, get other peoples to connect with them, form an organization. So if you see in the US, in spite of this non-unionization, a lot of Amazon workers are able to get unionized. For example, in India, you will hear news about Zomato and Swiggy people protesting to unionize. There are all kinds of negotiations which are happening. According to Johnson, based on goals and activities, mainly two clusters are active in diaspora philanthropy. So, what are these two clusters which are active in diaspora philanthropy? As I again said, these are based on various researches which have been done by various scholars. They might be, and these are not gray, watertight compartments. There are gray areas in between. So there is something called hometown associations. These are small voluntary organizations by migrants from the same hometown in their country of origin who reside close to each other in United States. You will see such hometown associations in cities of India. Done, we don't call them hometown associations, we call gaon ke log. ये गांव, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल आई वाज गिविंग यू दिस एग्जांपल ऑफ this set of boys who were selling monkey nuts and ravides and all that stuff during winters. So when I asked them what do they do in summers, because this is only a winter thing, they pointed to the sugar cane. They have a sugarcane shop. So I said, is it your shop? So the boy said, it's a village shop. So obviously, this is a village association. So people from the same village who have come and settled, for example, in Gurgaon, have set up this voluntary association. They used to focus, traditionally, they used to focus on creating, preserving culture and helping in meeting in local economics. Now have evolved themselves as a significant philanthropic actor, mostly with the help of their home governments. HTs usually raise funds to accomplish charitable projects related to education, health, infrastructure development in their hometown. So, look at how these associations have become transnational. So, for example, there is this agrarian reform and farmer resistance in Punjab. A research done by Shinder S. Thandi about Punjab, Mera Pind, Mera Sabechar, Mera Virsa, understanding Sikh diaspora support for the Punjab Kisan Morcha. All this agitations, the Kisan agitation, which was led by the Punjab farmers, was amply supported by the Sikh diaspora. So there are, it's a Routledge India thing. It's a 2022 published. You can get it on Google if you search. Then, in terms of besides the hometown association, there are the professional associations. Primary role is to support and protect interest of their members, counter the perceived discrimination in the profession by field by diasporic community. Actual monetary assistance, they also provide knowledge and skills which leave a profound impact on the host country. Now, these associations have also grown beyond working in the host country to engage with the home country. Example, Asian American Hotel and Owners Association, American Association of Physicians of Indian origin, National Arab American Medical Association. And because of globalizations, now these organizations inevitably do philanthropy back home. Primary mission of raising and distributing private funds through grants to support charitable institutions, establish endowment, provide funds privately to civil society organizations. There are enough of these funds which are working in the home country. So a natural and the most obvious case, whenever a natural disaster happens, these organizations collect fund and disperse it through home non-government organizations or civil society organizations, that is diaspora foundations and philanthropic intermediate. In addition to grant making, these also foster bonds between diaspora communities and countries of their ancestry, provide education and network opportunity to the donors, encourage transfer of knowledge. The whole this venture funding was set up by this what was called TIE. The investment opportunities was by these Indian entrepreneurs in the US. They started funding technology companies in India, build the capacity of non-profit sector. A lot of non-profit in the country today is being done by diasporas. So, in fact, there's a case study I will put. Kapoor revealed the mentoring role of Indian diaspora, significant from India, primarily in two ways: boosting Indian and overseas confidence. See, the very fact that these Indians were there outside, they showed to those local communities that Indians had the talent, they had the capabilities. India's confidence, as well as the confidence of overseas investors about India's potential. The great Indian middle class was the major talking point. Companies like Yahoo, HP, General Electric opened R&D centers, and all these initially were opened in the Silicon Valley of India, which was Bangalore, because a lot of Bangalore professionals was what got them, and then these professionals came back to set shop for these multinationals. Unleashing of entrepreneur culture. And what I was talking to you earlier, the startup culture today that we hear, that every second person, every second technology or a management person is starting a startup, is running a startup, is because of those entrepreneurships in the 90s and the 2000s. Some returns while others circulate between the two countries. Technology diffusion occurs through imitation, mimicry, effective way to reduce search costs. Networks embody technologies, humans, rather than physical capital. So, in fact, Apollo Hospital is a direct example of a immigrant, emigrant to the US who came back and set up these hospitals. Indian diaspora success in Silicon Valley is influencing how world views India, reflecting reputational spillover, leading success in leading sectors in a leading country. The whole, Y2K problem in terms of the computer switching in the year 2000, a whole lot of world, business came to India because Indian technology capabilities or Indian software capabilities were world known. It created a brand name where an Indian software programmer sends an ex ante signals of quality, just like Made in Japan sends an ante signal of quality of consumer electronics. So software was one of the major, brand value of India. English speaking was again a very major brand value of India. Unfortunately, all these things now have been taken by other countries too. So let's sum up. Ample evidence in migration is interlinked to economic development, interlinkages between globalization and migration. Understood, both migration and development reinforce each other. Entrepreneurship and diaspora remittance were discussed. Crucial elements regarding knowledge sharing, technology transfer, and international peace were described. In fact, there are these, as I keep telling you, you can open it in a different tab and bookmark it. There is this economics of migration, economist, you can Google search it. This is, I think, Asian sociological something magazine, journal. Volume 18, issue 2. It's available online. You can, quickly go through it in terms of economics of migration. Then there is the economics of migration, labor market impacts, and migration policy in terms of Elsevier. This is Science Direct. This is again available online. This is a 2020 article. You can open it in a Google tab and bookmark it. If you want, you can read through it. There is a Springer Open article, Wider Economic Impacts of Highly Skilled Migrants, a survey of literature for receiving countries. Substantial growth in papers exploring host countries' impact beyond the labor market. So there are multiple impacts. It's not just the labor market. The impacts are felt in various areas. So it's a Springer Open article. Then there are other references in the unit. One can look at the unit. Again, as I keep saying, if you don't have the physical unit, you can go online and search for the unit and you can download the unit. Okay. I have reached the end. Any questions? Let me switch on my video. Hi, guys. Any questions?
Sir, hello.
Yeah, Deptaru.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have a question. I agree with your entire. I've understood the entire points elaborated by you, sir. You have referred to Professor Devesh Kapoor. I sir want to mention just single point. Professor Anjali Shah. In the same year, I think 2010, she has also referred to you, as you have rightly pointed out, the selective nature of Indian migration. That is, the USA and the developed West, they act as gatekeepers to allow only high-skilled migration. And sir, you have referred to that labor is becoming a commodity now. To quote one of the Marxist classic economic and philosophical manuscripts, the alienation of labor, Now, this is, sir, I think this is only for organized labor. You have said, sir, rightly, that they are being disorganized and entire labor capital relationship has been restructured to informalization and an informal labor process, number one. And number two, to quote from Maria Mais, this has become a feminization of labor. Entire labor structure has been critically restructured to informalization in favor of the gig workers. So we have also pointed out rightly. But one thing, sir, as Professor Stephen Bertovich has also referred to, that this diaspora philanthropy and all these things, I think this we are just in case of India, we are just considering the creamy layer, that is those who nanarized or those who have migrated after 1947. One of the reasons may be that the colonial diaspora, they are well settled in their host countries and they are not so much they are very much reluctant to invest in India. Number one. And number two, I have referred to, sir, the Apollo's hospital. I can refer to the Ruby Hospital in Kolkata. This is also an NRI hospital. But Professor Devesh Tapur, in his same book, has pointed out how the Indian medicals, the huge proportion of Indian medicals are there in USA and UK, and especially National Health Service. I think, sir, they have invested very little in terms of human capital, in terms of knowledge, when they return back to India, and in terms of their services to India. And Professor Kapoor has also referred to Escott Hospital, Escott Heart Hospital. But I think these are all minuscule attempts compared to the huge number of Indian medical diaspora. This is my point only, sir. Thanks,
Doctor, you are right on every count. As I said, when you start unraveling the whole aspect of diaspora economics and diaspora philanthropy and other, there are so many layers to it. What we try and do as a part of the IGNU unit and as a part of this class is to two aspects of it. One aspect is for people who have no idea, to acclimatize or to get them to understand the various facets of diaspora and the economy. Number one. Number two, also there are some people who are in it only for passing an examination to get a diploma or a degree for furtherance. Now there is a third category of people who would want to acquire more knowledge and information to help them in their life in terms of perspectives and all that stuff. So what I typically keep on doing is, I pick up a large aspect. This is the first time that we are engaging. I'm seeing you in the class. So what I typically do is I pick up the unit, I make my PPT out of the unit. Where I feel the unit is inadequate, I bring in examples from other side to explain. I also bring out other reading material, so that all three sections of people who are in my class, in terms of those who have never understood, to explain it to them, B, who want to pass an examination, and C, who want to get further information, they are catered to.
No, sir, I have gone, sir, I have gone through your YouTube lectures, and I'm very much enlightened from your point.
Absolutely. Of view, and in fact, Devtaru, in MDI 007 and 008, which is further down the line, the second year, it is totally about economics and labor. And what you said are absolutely out there in that.
Yes, sir. I've gone through it, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful.
Thanks, sir.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Karan, koi question? Vinod, any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. In that case, if there are no questions, then let's call it a day. You have a wonderful Saturday. We'll meet again tomorrow between 4 and 6 for MDI 003, Unit 28. Okay, Vinod, I get your chat. We'll meet tomorrow between 4 and 6 for MDI 003, Unit 28 on East African diaspora. Bye, guys.